Hey there, boys and girls. Welcome to this week's episode of Hollow Weekly. Nick and George here with a story. Once upon a time in Hollywood.
And we're in Hollywood.
And we're in Hollywood. And we saw it at the Cinerama Dome Theater that we never been to before. It was our first time, and it was great.
And also appears in the movie, which was a really weird moment. There's that story about the original Godzilla that the people in Tokyo's main theater were watching Godzilla and saw the theater and thought the theater was being attacked. And I had this weird trippy moment when the Cinerama came up in the movie theater. I could feel that vertigo for a second. Like, whoa, wait a minute.
That's pretty cool.
This is where we're sitting.
So we saw this one at the Cinerama, Cinedome, whatever you call it. Apparently it's owned by ArcLight. I never knew that.
You're going to call it Cinedome forever just because you love the Godzilla egg
It looked so cool when it was
promo
like that.
thing when they did it.
It looked great.
Yes.
And we saw it from afar too, and it looked awesome. But it was our first time in that theater, and that movie theater is in this movie.
Yes.
So it was kind of cool.
It was very cool.
It was pretty fun to go see that. Plus we went with Garen, and that was always a good time.
Yes. That was a great time. And to be honest with you, it's a surprisingly good time movie. Right? Like, it's been a while since Tarantino felt that way. I remember when Pulp Fiction came out, it was you got to go see this, you'll have a great time vibe. Mm-hmm. But that vibe wasn't really behind Death Proof or Hateful Eight, or I didn't get people telling me you got to go see this and have a good time.
Well, leaving the theater, I felt like this aligned energetically more towards Pulp Fiction.
Right. Yeah, I actually felt like it lined towards my favorite Tarantino film, which is Jackie Brown. It felt really similar with elements of Inglourious Basterds, which I also love. But we'll get to that. We'll get to all that. So let's lay out the structure of this. Because here's the thing. We haven't talked about this in advance. I don't know if you're going to agree with this, but I'm actually sure you're going to agree with this. I say let's screw spoilers. We're going to do spoilers all episode long.
Yeah.
Because I just want to dive into this. I don't want to like dance around, do half the episode, and let's just do it. Right.
There's really no way to spoil it, honestly. Like, because this movie's just so good that you're just like, right? Like, you're going to watch it and still have the highest levels of enjoyment.
Totally. So if you're afraid of spoilers and you haven't seen this movie, go watch it, come back, check out the episode afterwards. If you're like us and you don't care about spoilers, or you think this movie's impervious to spoilers like Nick does, just keep listening.
I just don't believe in spoilers in general.
Right.
Don't get me on that tangent.
We have some questions built around for this episode. So the first question we had jotted down was, what is your tweet length review of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
See it again, see it again, see it again.
Wow. Actually, that's a pretty profound tweet length review, because I'm hearing a lot of buzz from people who are saying something really interesting about this movie, which is that Quentin created a world that they want to hang out in.
Yeah.
So there's people who are going to see it immediately the next day or day after, 2 days after, and it's because they're like, I just want to go hang out in that world.
Well, so over this past weekend, we went to the Egyptian Theater and we saw a bunch of really cool 35 millimeter prints of House on Hill, Them, The Haunting,
Cat People.
Yep. There was like two other ones, but
yes,
it was where they do a lot of the shots, like when they're going down like that strip in Hollywood, and when they had like the little like intermission to go grab a bite to eat. It's Hollywood today, so it's just kind of dirt nasty,
right?
Especially because like the last big place I've been to was Japan, and like the whole time I was walking, I was like, how did they do it?
Because we're not doing it.
Yeah, how did they do it so well? And so like seeing it in the film, like it looks fun,
yes,
and it looks great, and then you walk outside, and like it actually made me enjoy that area more, because I hate going down there.
Yeah, totally.
It's a pain in the ass. The traffic sucks. People down there suck.
Yep.
But like after seeing it, we drove around it, and like because I didn't realize how close it was to like the Egyptian, the Pantages Theater.
Yep.
And when we were cruising, like it gave me like a bigger appreciation for the area.
Yeah, I felt the same way. You said we drove the route home that at some point Brad Pitt drives.
Yeah, there's that one cemetery that's across from Warner Brothers. You could see like the hills with all the
which was cool,
the tombstones on it. And I was like, oh shit, we're gonna take that road back.
Yes.
And it was kind of fun to like hit up those spots.
Totally. My tweet length review of this movie is not sure if it's Quentin's best, entirely sure that it's the best Western of the year, and completely sure that it's the greatest home invasion movie ever made.
How many characters is that?
They upped it to like 260.
Yeah, they
now,
did. So you're completely fine.
I'm totally
No, yeah, it definitely is all that. And he actually came out and was like, I think he wrote a couple episodes of that Rick Dalton Western, and he was like, I would love to make them if someone picked them up. And I'm like, how has no one?
Right, you got to jump on that. Well, because I mean, there's a lot of Quentin backlash, and I think a lot of people are being cowardly and kind of hanging back to see how it's all processed.
He's gonna be like that when he's winning Oscars this next season.
But here, I had this thing that was really came over me after I was watching this that I wanted to hash out real quick before we dove into the other questions, because I've changed my mind in 24 hours about one thing I felt about this movie. So walking out, I remember turning to you and saying that I really liked the movie, but I felt like Quentin, and through no fault of his own, because he's innovated so many things that he didn't do anything new for him in this movie, right? And he was a revolutionary when he came out. Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, all that, like, was doing things that very few people have seen. Definitely most American audiences hadn't seen. Like, European audiences probably had some inkling of what he was up to, but not a lot of for our audiences. So I've changed my mind. I think he was doing something radically new, and I'm going to use a kind of grotesque metaphor to explain it, right? Because what I think is, if you look at, let's look at politics for a second. Back not so long ago, a guy named Howard Dean was a leading presidential candidate. He was a front runner, and his entire campaign derailed and blew up because he gave a scream at a rally.
Yeah,
exactly right. Which we should edit in.
And then Chappelle show did that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Totally. Now imagine a candidate in 2019 whose entire, all of their people working for them would be fired, sent home. Their entire campaign would pack it up because they screamed at a rally. It's impossible to conceive because standards have moved so far, right? So I think Quentin, either consciously or unconsciously, is smart enough to have figured out that standards for movie stuff has moved as well. And he has basically done an end run around almost all the things that most people still think of as success for a Hollywood movie. And here, I'll explain it like this. People are going to argue forever about whether where this ranks in his body of work, and whether it's a great film or not a great film, or whether it's got problematic elements, whether it's insensitive to Bruce Lee, Sharon Tate, all that stuff. They're going to argue about all that stuff forever. And he, I think, just went around them because this movie is insanely rewatchable, right? And
we're both seeing it again,
right? And it's also incredibly interesting to just hang out with. Like, he created a world that you want to just hang out in, right? And it's also something that's creating this incredible dialogue on the internet and with film critics and with film fans. They're having more interesting discussions about this movie than I've seen anyone have about a movie for the whole rest of the year. So all the byproducts of success, forget the gatekeepers and the critics and all that stuff, even in podcasts like us, like, all the gatekeepers are doing what they've been doing for years and years and years. But meanwhile, what would you want out of a movie that you made? A whole bunch of fans to have really interesting conversations afterwards, the crave coming back and hanging out in the world you created, right? And then having a movie that's so rewatchable that, 20 years from now, it'll come on, and for the 20th time, 50th time, whatever, I'll just be like, Once Upon a Time's on. And what, right? So, like, who needs the other stuff?
Yeah,
right?
It made me realize today, because the movie was like 2 hours and 40 minutes or something like that, and it went by really, really quick.
So quick.
And the only other time a movie's been that long maybe because I think they said that one's looking at 3 hours.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. But the last movie that was about 3 hours that went by that quick for me was Wolf of Wall Street.
Okay. Fair.
And I was like, do I just have like this big thing for Leonardo DiCaprio? Like, is he that charismatic that I can watch him for 3 hours?
Right.
And it just kind of snuck up on me. I was like, oh shit, like, because people always talked about, like, before he won the Oscar, win the Oscar, and I'm like, it's Leonardo DiCaprio. And then I was like, oh yeah, no, he's probably.
So I don't think that theory is right, only because I'll pay you to sit through The Revenant. and tell me
Oh, is that longer too?
tell me that yeah, it's long and it's Leo, and I'll pay you to watch it and tell me it goes
And
by
those are
fast.
3 like masterful directors. So.
Yeah, totally. But that movie
You know
will
what,
not
though?
go by fast.
You know what?
But,
I'm glad though that we have a test.
Yeah,
to test the theory. So
totally.
we'll come back to this.
we'll
at a later
revisit this,
episode.
yeah, in a
Okay.
different episode and
I like
see how
that.
that
We'll
experiment,
test that.
how that experiment came
But
out.
it went by so quick. It was. I think the Hangout movie is like the right term. I want to watch it. Then I want to go and watch Pulp Fiction. Like I just want to dive right into that afterwards.
I completely agree.
Sounds like a good double bill. I did see this is Criterion related. They are doing a double bill, 35 millimeter print of E.T. followed by Alien.
Oh.
No, E.T. and then The Thing.
Oh no, no! That someone is.
Isn't that great?
Someone's psychotic.
Oh yeah, there's sick but psycho.
All right, what was the best moment of the movie for you?
Jesus Christ, what was the best moment? Oh, brother, that is such a hard answer. I mean, I liked so much
Yes.
of it. What was
Yes.
the best moment? I mean, there's the generic answer that comes to mind is like when Brad Pitt goes to the little commune.
Yes.
Like that is a really great moment. And then the ending fight scene is such a great moment.
Yes.
Oh, is there one that is there a
Is there
sneakier
anyone
one?
you could pick, or maybe not? Maybe you can't even pick one.
I think there's a lot of really good moments in there. Oh, you know what though? Okay, so like the horror person in me wants to say the commune part.
Yes.
But I really think the best moment is when he goes back the next day, when Rick Dalton goes back for the Western, and he gives that scene his all.
Yes.
I forgot that like I was
Yes.
watching
Yes.
Once Upon a Time. I was like, I thought I was watching a Western,
Yes.
and he was crushing it.
Yes.
And then it cuts, and I was like, oh, that's right. This is the film that they're making.
Yes. That's my best moment too.
Really?
Yeah.
It wasn't
That's absolutely the whole sequence from when he meets the little girl who's reading her book and doing whatever, all the way up to when he knocks out the scene, knocks the scene out of the park, and that to me was my favorite sequence
It was
in the film. But it's a hard choice. There were a lot of others, obviously, that I wanted to pick, but I feel like that to me that was the one that I would, if I was going back to the theater and they were like, there's technical difficulties and, we're shutting it down. There's only 10 minutes. We can only show 10 minutes of the movie. And I had the choice. That's what I would film.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's what I would show right now.
I also like it because we keep using that term like hangout film.
Yes.
This is like it's the only time in the film where like we stopped hanging out and we were in a Western.
Yes.
Like they have like other stuff like when they're in the Western
Yeah,
and like
totally.
they're going through the film and like filming and stuff. But that was like when they yelled cut and they went back to it, I was like, oh shit. Like just for two reasons. One, it was really well done. Two, it was cool just to see how his character, he went into the trailer, he's like, that's it, I'm done drinking my whiskey sours. And then he basically grabs a flask and spits it out.
Right.
That acting was just so, it was a good payoff too. From when he
Yes.
first met the little girl, he's reading that book about the buffalo guy who hurt his shoulder or hip. Did he hurt his shoulder or hip?
Uh,
I think he said shoulder in the book, and then
I
Brad
can't
Pitt's
remember.
character gets his hip thing.
Yeah.
I was like, I was trying to think, like, did they both hurt the same thing? But yeah, that scene was just like phenomenal.
and what's weird is I loved hearing the it was sparse. It didn't happen a lot, but I loved hearing the direction from off camera while we were watching the scene happening from the director. Like, give me sexy evil Hamlet. Like,
Oh, yeah.
And then
People love Evil Hamlet.
you love evil Hamlet. And then at the end, we're watching the FBI show with Brad Pitt and Leo, and you're hearing them talking, and the camera's fixed on the TV. And I don't know how he did the sound, but it was almost spooky. Hearing their voices talking like, "Oh, good shot! I love that shot. Good duck. Nice
Yeah.
move. Like
Nice leap. That
Yeah,
guy's
nice
an
leap.
asshole.
They're talking to each other, but it was creepy. I felt like they were sitting in the chairs in the theater next to me talking about the thing we were watching.
Yeah.
And it was just a very creepy, cool, like...
That was one of the comments I saw. They're like, I wish we could get the whole film commentary, but by those characters.
Yeah, they were Mr. Science Theatering it, and it was glorious. It was absolutely amazing.
All that stuff. He did a really cool blend of, oh, no, best moment.
Oh, no. This is this kind of movie.
Yeah,
ahead.
there's so
Go ahead.
I was okay. So I'm gonna stick with the Western scene, but a
Yeah.
close runner up is
Yes.
when it cuts back to Brad Pitt's character wondering what would happen if he went down to try to get on that show as
Yep.
a stunt guy, and
Yep.
then it cuts back to him,
Yep.
and he just gives that. Oh yeah, it was such a good moment.
It was really good. I honestly, I feel like Brad, if it was a contest, I feel like he won this movie a little bit over Leo, but
not by a lot.
Not by a lot, but I feel like it's Brad's movie, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that it's probably harder to do with way less dialogue because he's doing it more with attitude and body language and whatnot. But it just felt so authentic.
He also has the most action,
That's true. Totally true.
most ass kicking, most faces
Yeah, totally
punched.
true. Yeah, yeah.
That was the only scene you missed, was him punching a hippie's face.
Yeah, well,
That was it. So make sure you say it. Yeah, which is funny. We're both seeing it again tonight.
All right, who's the best side character in Once Upon a Time?
Ooh, best side character.
I'll give my answer while you're thinking. I'll start this one. So I think it's pretty clear that the best side character in the movie, I'm not counting Margot Robbie as a side character, by the way. But even if I was, I think the best side character, if I'm being honest, would be the little girl. I feel like she was a scene stealer. She was amazing. I feel like she anchored a lot of what the movie was really trying to do. And I found it really interesting that there was this split because you got to wonder between the really haphazard, chaotic nature of how Leo approaches his Hollywood career and the completely epically focused way that the little girl is approaching her Hollywood career.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder where Quentin's heart really lies between those two poles, because he seems like a really chaotic force of nature kind of person, but his movies down to the very last detail are thought through and excellent.
And when you hear him talk about the movies too,
Right.
he sounds so detailed, like her.
like her, but he lives like him.
Yeah, he
right?
gives off that vibe.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you have these two tracks of how you have a Hollywood career, and they kind of have a respect for each other because she turns to Leo after that scene and compliments him. You can tell that she's been skeptical of him like for the whole time since he met him, rightfully so. But she compliments him and his acting, whatever, and he's really touched by. I don't know how much respect he gives back because he's kind of self-centered, but I mean, he literally owns no posters that aren't his own movies. So he's,
Yeah.
But anyway, it's interesting that was a thing. So she's undeniably to me the best side character, but I want to put an honorable mention vote in for Brandy because that dog is the best
That dog was
the
great.
movie dog in forever. That dog was amazing.
It was adorable.
It was adorable, and there was a really nice payoff because Brandy was really cute and sweet the whole movie, and Brad Pitt keeps feeding him this disgusting,
Rat flavored.
amazing cans of dog food. Amazing, like this prop, I would die for a can.
The rat flavored one?
Yeah, whatever. But it was called like wolf treats or something like that, and then the subline for it was like good treats for bad boys or something, good treats for mean dogs or something. And you're like, he's not a mean dog, but Brandy has some abilities.
Brandy
right.
flips her shit.
Right, so she deserves that line of food, and I thought she was spectacular. So those are my votes for best.
My best side character, who's in and out of the film pretty quick, and you really only see her in Brad's flashback, is Kurt Russell's wife.
Oh yeah, she was amazing.
She just comes in, she's like, "Get that
She was
motherfucker out of here!"
amazing. She was the Mr. Wolf of the movie. She was like
Yeah.
organizing things and getting them moving.
And I just liked how the insight you got into her and Kurt Russell's relationship. She was like, "Tell him to get the fuck off the lot," and he was like, "All right, we need you to quickly get off."
yeah, it was like the things they do in the movies where the gag where the translator and it's world leaders
Yeah.
and someone says something really crappy and they translate it really nice.
Yeah.
It was like that.
I'd have to give it to her just because she came in like a storm, and everyone just lost it.
Yes.
Over like the crazy shit she was, or just how just how much she hated him. I love that.
What was your least favorite thing about this
The
film?
fact the fact that it's not longer.
You wanted more.
Dude, like, I wonder how many of the shots in the trailer were trailer shots.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And they always, I don't know, I just feel like I never really want like a director's cut that's like 3 hours longer because I accidentally made Alex watch the Zack Snyder cut of Watchmen, which was like an hour and a half longer,
right?
And had like this weird ass cartoon in it. And he even said that's not the version you should watch,
right?
But I would kill for like a 3 hour plus Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like
interesting
because like I really like the hangout film term because that's how it is. Like I just want to be there more. That's why like I have no problem seeing it again tonight.
And it goes right back to Quentin's roots because, I mean, if you think of characters from his body of work that you want to hang out with, Brad Pitt in True Romance would probably be one of them, and that's way back at the beginning of their careers. So
I've only seen the Sicilian scene.
Oh no, there's there's an amazing honey bong Brad Pitt scene in True Romance is just spectacular. My least favorite we talked about after we left the movie was I think there's way too much of Al Pacino. I didn't buy his character. All I saw was Al Pacino the whole time. It didn't happen with the rest of them. With the rest of the big name actors, that effect it didn't happen to me. Mm-hmm. But all I was seeing was Al Pacino like chewing the scenery and like whatever. And he like I was telling you, he moved the plot forward like a half inch. Basically, all he did was get Leo off to Italy, which anyone could have done, or Leo could have just directly taken a phone call and been like, "Sure, I'll take a job." Like, we didn't need all the whatever. And I don't know what he added to the film. When every time we cut back to him, I wanted to be elsewhere in the movie. I didn't want to leave the other characters. He didn't do it for me, and not his fault. I just don't feel like that character made a lot of sense in what the movie was trying to achieve, at least as I was taking it. But like you, I wouldn't have wanted to shorten the movie to get him out of there. I would have wanted to add more scenes with.
It's weird.
The other characters.
I didn't really bump on him. I don't know why. I think I was just so into the film that like, and also like it's a Hollywood film. You got to have those one. There's always that one character.
Yes.
Who's like, you're going under. You got to be this thing.
He's definitely.
You can't make a movie about Hollywood and not have someone be like, your career's going in the toilet.
He's definitely.
I feel like did they do that? Because I know I saw one of the other questions is. So I don't want to bring up that film until just yet.
Oh yeah, they did do that actually.
And I feel like if you make a film in Hollywood, you have to have like that one character.
Yeah. No,
but I can see why you bumped on it. I just think like also because we live in LA and like we've been to like because they met at like Musso and Frank's, which like we like to go there before like we see a movie or a show at Pantages. Yep. Like I was like the whole time like that's Musso and Frank's. That's so cool.
Yeah, living in LA and watching this movie is a whole different experience.
Yeah,
that's.
But sure. maybe tonight. Well, I wonder what we'll think about it on the second viewing.
Yeah. That's another thing. I've heard a lot of people who have changed some of their opinions based on the whatever, which is also part of how rich the movie is, which was part of why I argue that it's really interesting. Before we move to the other question, I just want to like stop here for a second because there's this really weird thing happening with a lot of the metaphors in the movie. We talked about it a little bit, so I just wanted to bring it up and see what you thought about it now that you've sat on it for 24 hours. But I thought it was really cool and interesting that this movie is a Western. And Hateful Eight got massacred. He got, one Oscar nomination. He didn't get a nom for a screenplay for Hateful Eight. It was not the reception he's looking for movies. And Quentin cares about this stuff. He's not like some directors who they just blow it off. He cares about accolades and reception. He actually said he might retire or not on the movie based on how it's received. So,
wow.
He's definitely, watching and registering how people take his work, right? So Hateful Eight got hit pretty hard, and I'm sure he wasn't happy with how that came out. It was probably his worst reception since Death Proof. And it was a Western, right? So now he makes a secret Western that doesn't feel like a Western, did not feel like a Western from the trailers at all. But this movie is a Western. We spend so much time with the movies inside the movie, which is really interesting, right? It actually reminded me a lot of Mulholland Drive, because one of the best scenes in Mulholland Drive is when Naomi Watts goes to an audition and you see her switch from the person we've been with to what she does in audition. And you see Leo do the same thing with the evil, sexy Hamlet, moment, right? So that whole sequence is a Western. That must be 10 minutes of the film right there. The whole Spawn Ranch thing is shot like a Western. You said you saw on Reddit, people were talking about Brad Pitt lives like a cowboy.
Yeah, he's like
Lifestyle,
Yeah.
right? This movie is a Western. And what I found really interesting in terms of the metaphor was, you know, gunfighters solving issues in a simplistic way. I challenge you to a duel. Whoever wins is right. You know, we'll test if you're a witch. We'll throw you in the river. If you float, you're guilty. If you drown, you're innocent. Like that simplistic way of looking at things, we don't get to do that so much anymore. It's more complicated. It's more messy now, right? So like the way Quentin shot our favorite sequence, where Leo is insecure, he's berating himself in the trailer. He's saying, I stayed up too late, I drank, I screwed up, I can't do this anymore. And then he's like, he psychs himself up. He's like, I'm going to go show these guys I can still do this. And he rolls out, and he's in the Western alley, strolling down like a gunfighter, going to confront his demons and this scene and show that he can still act. And he wins that scene like a gunfighter. You know, he wins over the crowd and proves himself like a gunfighter would. And literally the scene starts with that amazing behind the back gunshot that the character in the movie does, right? So and he screws up one of his lines. He almost screws up the scene, and then he recovers. Which is kind of like the arc of the gunfighter learning how to gunfight and then getting it down and, you know, doing whatever. So I feel like he approached this like our gunfight in 2019, our style of gunfighting is proving ourselves in our work, proving ourselves online, proving ourselves to the people we care about, not shooting people anymore, right? So there's this metaphor buried in there, and I feel like because it was built around that, this movie is basically a sneaky Western. And only Tarantino could do that. You don't go to see a movie from Spielberg where you're like, you know, oh man, he's got, you know, Bridge of Spies coming out. It looks like a Cold War thriller, and then it turns out it's a comedy or whatever. No, it's a Cold War thriller. That's like you get what is marketed to you from the big name directors, because that's what they're known for. Only Quentin can market you, hey, here comes a Tarantino movie. It's a Manson family. Remember all the buzz when we found out that he was going to do a Manson, especially as people who do a horror podcast.
Yeah.
We're like, Quentin's doing a Manson family. It's going to be crazy, right? And he actually redid a Western, and it's going to get a lot of the accolades that Hateful Eight didn't. It's like he snuck back around and was like, I'm picking up my Oscars. I don't care what you people say. I'm still going to get Oscars for a Western. Watch how I do it.
It's weird how like everyone's like, all right, he's making a Manson family murder. This is not a Manson family murder movie.
No,
at all.
It's a buddy movie. It's a Western, and it's a home invasion film. That's primarily what this thing is.
It's I don't like it when people are like, oh, why are the curtains blue, kind of like thing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I did think it is fun, and I shoot me if this is incorrect, or just tell me I'm incorrect.
We can't shoot you anymore. Remember, that's not how we do things.
Yeah, we can't do things.
Explained it.
But it's funny in the beginning, his character's talking about the people who are wanted dead or alive.
Yes.
Because the amateurs bring them in alive. That's why they're not around.
Yeah.
And then the one girl's in the pool, clearly like fucked up.
Yep.
And he's like, well, gotta kill you.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Not gonna take
that. Exactly what I'm saying. And another thing that I thought was super refreshing from Tarantino, against my own argument yesterday that he wasn't doing anything new for himself. We know that Quentin is a massive cinephile, and he's always been in his movies.
That's why he needs to come on Criterion.
Yeah, you definitely. You're totally welcome. But in this one, he's a TV file. There's so much TV in this, and I didn't know he was that knowledgeable and passionate about TV, and I found it really fascinating that kept getting worked into.
I watched the thing with him in the video store he used to work at that he always credits to. They had TV stuff as well.
That's awesome.
So he was
you can tell, right? Like,
dude, like he was just willing off all these shows. And like I like to think that like I know like a lot of like pop culture about the history, but like I never heard of FBI. Like and like that was like the main show. I'm
right.
Like, I guess I don't know shit. To be honest.
So I just found it a real treat that he had moved his obsessive subject, and the fact that he's moving it so late in his career, like either this is his retirement movie or he's got one more, or he's lying to us and he's going to do a bunch more, but it feels like he's winding up his career. And you know, the fact that he switched now, it's like watching a race car driver run a perfect kind of race for 298 laps and then go in the pit. You're like, wait, what are you? There's like 2 more laps to go.
Yeah.
Like, why? And he was like, no, I'm gonna switch it up. Look, here's TV instead of movie. And I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive. So I thought that was.
He was like, here's TV, but in a movie.
but,
In what I know best.
But in a movie, yeah, totally. All right, let's do some assessments of this.
I'm excited for this.
This is
I got thoughts.
I might, yeah, and I might improvise a couple, but let's start with the ones we wrote down. So I'm gonna throw out 2, and you got to pick. Okay. All right. So, pick Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or Inglourious Bastards.
So, I've watched Inglourious Bastards like probably 4 or 5 times.
Yes.
And I love the movie.
Yes.
But even in that movie, there are some parts that really drag.
Okay.
Like
Fair.
when Mike Myers and Fassbender are talking, like that part for me just kind of drags.
Yes.
And I feel that every time, but I still really, really like the movie.
Yes.
I don't feel like there was anything like that for me in this one.
Okay.
So like, and I sort of remember the feeling when I left Inglourious Bastards. And having seen this yesterday,
sure.
70 millimeter, I think I already feel that I'm gonna always lean more towards Once Upon a Time. But the opening scene of Inglourious Bastards, though.
Yes. Okay. So let me. I'm not trying to change your mind. I just want to throw out because I'm basically thinking out loud because I feel like I'm sort of where you are, but I just want to think this through before I commit to it. Right. So, is there a villain actually in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? I know Manson is technically the
and
villain,
like the Intruders,
but yeah, right. But Manson is barely right. I mean singular villain, right? So like Christoph Waltz is the villain of the Hateful Eight. Samuel Jackson is the villain. Well, Leo really is the villain, but like they're both on the same side. In this one,
Django.
Manson. I'm sorry, Django. My bad. Manson in this one is in this movie for what 90 seconds, if that.
Yeah.
Right.
Very short.
So there's no single villain in this movie that I'm aware of. And Christoph Waltz is that role. He was one of the best villains in the last, 40, 50, maybe ever years in Inglourious Bastards, right? So
yeah, he's definitely
you're missing
going down.
a villain role in Once Upon a Time. Do you miss it or you don't care?
No, because everyone is so interesting that their choices in the film is sort of could either be not villainous, but the wrong decision,
right?
And then the wrong decision is the villain.
Totally. Okay, but so you think there are lower lows in Inglourious Bastards than there are in Once Upon a Time? So like there are draggy moments in one that the other doesn't have. What about the highs? So like the very best scene of Inglourious Bastards,
opening scene,
the opening scene, and also probably the whole end film attack
and that middle part when you meet the bastards and
then the card playing scene where they're guessing the card characters.
I need to rewatch that scene because every time I've watched it I know it's great,
yes,
but I still think there's something about Inglourious Once Upon a Time that was a little bit more interesting, and maybe it's because
but you're talking overall. So like I'm just comparing the peaks, right? So what's our best scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is Leo's acting scene. That's what we've said, right? Is that scene as good as the opening scene of Inglourious Bastards?
Is it as good? For me, in Inglourious Bastards, it's sort of like I feel like the scenes tiered downwards. So it's opening scene, then when they beat him up, and then maybe it's even when they do the card scene.
Okay.
And then I don't know. That's a good.
Then the violent freakout sequence. You got the theater massacre in Inglourious Bastards, and then you have when all hell breaks loose in Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
Which one of those do you like better? I pick Once Upon a Time on that one.
Once Upon a Time.
Okay, fair. That's fair.
Okay, but if we did, so what would we compare the card scene?
So basically, Inglourious Bastards is really the only reason this conversation even took more than 5 seconds was that opening scene of Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
And Christoph Waltz.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So, all right, I'm picking Once Upon a Time too. I'm with you. I just wanted to.
It's not that like I don't like I
right.
No,
for sure. I just wanted to think it through because I felt like that was it felt harder than I would have thought to pick. But okay, so this is a Hollywood movie, right? So we just did this for Criterion recently. Pick Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or The Player.
So okay, when I saw this question,
Yes.
I had to break it down.
Yes.
So, I think as a movie, I love Once Upon a Time more.
Yes.
Right. But I think but the player, it gives you an inside look in Hollywood in a very different way than any other movies.
Yes.
And so I think the Hollywood side of Once Upon a Time is way funner and more rewatchable.
Yes.
But I think the player was more interesting in terms of how the executives talk and how they.
So
make
you
movies.
like Once Upon a Time as a movie more, but you like the player as a Hollywood
movie more. Yeah.
That's fair. I would pick the player for both.
Yeah.
But it would be it's a hard choice for me, which I wasn't expecting going into watching Once Upon a Time, by the way, because the player is one of my favorite movies, so I didn't think it would even be close. But it's not an easy decision. Like I feel like there are some clunky parts of the player.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't know, but and it's also so here's the weird part too, because it's a little hard to compare because Once Upon a Time is a fairy tale. It's a fantasy, and the player was basically showing you how things really were. So they were kind of at cross purposes that way.
Yeah.
Right? And given that's the case, I found that, but there's something organic and alive inside the player, inside Altman's movies in general, that I think is just really special and uncapturable that I don't think Once Upon a Time has. But I agree with you. Like if I'm being honest, well, I don't even know if that's true because I've seen the player 5 times. I will probably watch them an equal amount of times in my lifetime, ultimately, and that means it's a tie.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's also like the opening scene of the player when it's just like circling around whatever studio they're at, like hearing people try to pitch their stories, and the producer's just like, yeah, sure,
Yes.
sure, yeah, and then like cutting to the other, not even cutting to the people because it's like all just one shot.
Yes.
I don't know. It's just in terms. I think it's also because like how much I love the idea of like filmmaking in Hollywood and shit like that.
Totally.
That the player was just it wasn't like anything else I've ever seen.
Yeah,
in terms of how they do it.
there is nothing else.
So it's super unique.
All right, so let's dive into the ending of Once Upon a Time, but I want to bracket it with just Quentin and violence in general. We talked about this also before, but I don't know. I could be reading this into this, right? But Quentin is very aware at this point of the accusation that he's violent for violence sake, and in Inglourious Basterds, his comment on it was the stupid violence in the film inside the film, which was the Nazi sniper film inside Inglourious Basterds, where nothing aesthetically interesting happened inside that film at all. It was literally hour of a guy shooting people from a tower and then the Nazi audience loving it, right? So that's literally the dumb cartoonish version of violence. So Quentin is clearly saying, if you do violence for violence sake, like I'm accused of, this is what it would look like, and that's dumb, right? So he already took care of that as a comment, right? But in this one, in all of Quentin's other movies that I can think of off the top of my head, there's something that has to be accomplished, right? In Pulp Fiction, you're trying to retrieve the suitcase. In Hateful Eight, you're trying to transport prisoners. In Django, you're trying to free Jamie Foxx's girlfriend, basically, right? There's a time-sensitive mission that's underway in all his movies. That's not in this movie. This movie feels so laid back because there's no mission. Everyone's just hanging out. And then everything that's pivotal that happens is because they were just hanging out. As a matter of fact, the only reason Leo and Brad were there to thwart the Manson family was because a 3-month dumb delay that Leo took to Italy that brought them back, and then they went and got drunk, right? And if they hadn't done that, they wouldn't have. Like, it was all just everyone just hanging out and then just being in the right place at the right time for reasons, right? So it's the opposite of how all his other movies are sort of built. Yeah. So when you have that structure, what's hanging over this movie, the time bomb in this movie, isn't is
that's my
Bruce
favorite
Willis
thing.
Gonna get his watch back? Good.
No, that's my favorite. The Hitchcock bomb on the table thing.
Yeah.
I love that little thing that he said about that. Whenever, because when I remember when I watched that clip.
Yes.
like it changed the way like I viewed movies.
Totally.
I was like, oh, that's the bomb.
Totally, right,
Yeah.
right. But the time bomb in this movie is our awareness of what happens to Sharon Tate.
Absolutely.
That's the time bomb in this movie, right? So, and you can feel it as Kurt Russell starts doing the narration and bringing us close to that event and walking us through how it's going to go down. I got so nervous right, watching the movie, and the suspense was killing me. You don't know how Quentin's going to execute this. I hadn't spoiled it going into it, so like I just assumed that she was going to get killed.
I
right?
did too.
So,
I saw some articles accusing him of like revisionist history, like in a
okay,
negative
we
way.
don't even have to talk about that.
Yeah,
That's ridiculous. But so here's the point, right? So you've got the time bomb is lurking there, and we know violence is going to come. Violence is coming, right? So as the violence approaches, two things happen to this movie that I found fascinating. And I felt like it was way subtler than the Inglourious Basterds sniper film violent comment.
Yeah.
So in this one, there's a really quick thing that happens on the TV. Kurt Russell steers us towards the thing, and then it's midnight on the night that the Manson family strikes. And the TV gets fired up, and all of a sudden you hear from the TV, a voice goes, "And now what you've all been waiting for." Right?
Oh,
It happens.
I didn't even catch
right
that.
Before
Wow.
all hell breaks loose, right? And then Brad Pitt, who's been feeding his dog this food that we referenced before, this disgusting looking food that comes out of his can, it's all about to break loose, and he takes the can and opens it up and turns to his dog and go, "It's feeding time," and then puts out this disgusting, hard to look at thing, right? So what does Quentin do when he's building a movie? He's like, all right, I'm going to put a bunch of violence in it. I know it's really offensive to the audience. It's feeding time. You're going to get violence, and it's not pretty to look at. So what else in this movie is not pretty to look at? Is this dog food that he's about to feed. So you have the confluence of here's what you all been waiting for, and it's feeding time, and it all happens right on the threshold of the Manson thing. And then an insane sequence goes, but then after the insane sequence, there's this really quiet ending to the movie, like the quietest ending you could think of. There's just people talking. They're
Come visit me tomorrow.
Come visit me
You know, good
tomorrow,
night.
and then they just take a really quiet stroll up a pretty quiet driveway. And all the iconography of the Manson family's violence, the helter skelter, the I'm here to do the devil's business, all gets reworked in Quentin's head. Now there's no helter skelter, right? Which is part of what glamorized the Mansons, and the Manson quote that resonated through the whole 60s and 70s. I'm here. I'm the devil, and I'm here to do devil's business. In Quentin's universe, turns into Brad Pitt telling the cops, "What did he say?" And he goes, he said
They
he
were
was
doing
the
some
devil, and he
devil-
was here to do some devil shit."
He's like, nah, I don't know if that's verbatim. Well, I didn't. Apparently, someone was saying that the girl who got it like super bad,
Yes.
was supposed to be. She had a name like Squeaky or something.
Squeaky from, right? Yeah,
Yeah, that was her.
Yeah, totally.
So everyone was like, it was super cool because apparently, like the shit she did in real life. Like,
Yes.
I don't exactly know what they. I know they killed her,
Yeah.
but like I didn't
Yeah,
read
you
like
don't
what
wanna know.
happened.
It's horrifying.
But apparently, it's horror. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And so they were like, it was really cool to see that happen.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, we're all cheering for it, and it's the violence breaking out. But I find it fascinating that he set it up for us like in that subtle, I know what I'm doing kind of way, and then gave it to us, and then ended it really quietly. And then I was super struck by the last shot, which was this really quiet. Sharon Tate, you hear her voice on the intercom, which is like you heard Brad Pitt and Liv's voice when they're talking to the TV. We're hearing voices when not seeing people. And then we see her stroll out, but we don't really see her. It's shot from above. It's that camera move over the roof that's insanely hard to do, and then it looked really cool. And you're just seeing this group of quiet people in a neighborhood that's going to go back to being quiet, and none of the shit that happened is going to happen. And they go inside, and the camera stayed on this random patch in their driveway with two just
One was
askew
a
cars,
Porsche.
right?
Yeah, one was
And nothing is symbolic there. Nothing. I mean, the only symbolic thing was it looks like there's an X, and she was standing on the X, and there was definitely, an X on Sharon Tate's fate, right? And she walked off of it, which could be cool if that was meant. But it just felt like the camera happened to be in a place, and then Quentin pulled the plug on the movie, and it was that quiet ending. Is like his rage as a director just in going to sleep inside himself. And it's almost like therapeutic for him. And if all that was the way I think it is, then that makes this kind of my favorite movie of his besides Jackie
I thought
Brown.
the sweetest part, there was something like really heart. It was actually a perfect blend of extremely heartbreaking and extremely like sweet. Because you always think of like what if.
Yes.
Like I was reading like apparently like right before Freddie Mercury died, he had like a bunch of toes cut off and stuff like that because of the disease.
Yeah.
And he was a few months. And this is what the Brian May, the guitarist.
Yep.
He was a few months away from like when they had like breakthroughs and treatments. So you always think of like the what if.
Sure.
And this film does a really great job of like what if
Right.
the Manson family murders were didn't happen. And that's why I thought the sweetest part was when Leo's standing there talking to the guy, she comes on the intercom and the first thing she says something like, "Is everything okay?"
Yes.
And like when you hear it like that, you're like, "Oh, fuck."
Gives you a chill, actually.
Yeah, you're like, but what if like that
Yeah,
didn't happen to
totally.
that person?
But and also like, but that I guess that's what I'm saying is, we know Quentin can be loud and brash and abrasive and do whatever, but he can also be super quiet and I feel like in this one he can also dial back the dialogue. It wasn't as dialogue repartee like Royale with cheese as his movies can get. There's a lot of moments in this movie that are just quiet or like things aren't happening or the dialogue is super repetitive. Like when he meets Bruce Dern in the trailer.
Oh yeah.
And they're just saying the same thing over and over and over again. And Quentin can pack more into a paragraph of dialogue that's meaningful than most, directors have ever been able to do. And he sort of reversed it this time and packed less into the dialogue in a lot of places than most directors can do. Any director can write better dialogue than the Brad Pitt Bruce Dern scene. Right? And so the fact that he would do that and take
I don't know if anyone can write better though. He's a good writer.
He's a great, no, of course, but like, I mean, anyone could write better than that scene because it was literally, I'm Cliff Booth. I worked with you. We're colleagues. Who are you? I'm Cliff Booth. I worked with you. Stuntman. I mean, it went on for minutes and minutes and minutes. And for a writer as good as him, imagine a script like his is gold. Like if you were like, Quentin was walking down the street and he has a script he's working on. Do a thought experiment. He's walking down. We've seen him out the window right now as we're recording this. There he goes, walking down the sidewalk. He's got a script. 2 pages just fell out, and he keeps going. Now, obviously, we're going to catch up because we want him on the show. So we're going to be like, here's your script. But if you didn't, if you picked them up and read them, you're in for amazingness. Now, imagine if you picked it up and it was 2 pages of, "Hi, I'm Cliff Booth. I worked with you. Hi, I'm Cliff Booth. I worked with you." You'd be like, what? What is this?
Nah, you'd be like, that's Tarantino. he probably typed that up on an old-fashioned typewriter minutes ago. The ink is still wet.
I'm just saying, I think he went against the grain of himself.
I agree with that.
In a lot of ways. I
that.
find that really interesting that he's able to do that.
I think that's what helped make this such a chill, laid-back movie.
Totally.
Because like that was one of the first things like when we were walking out, right before we saw Elijah Wood, anything happens in Hollywood, baby.
That's right.
And we saw it with Tommy McLaughlin. So like it was crazy. It was the most LA way to see this movie. Like directors and actors in the theater.
It really was.
At the same time at the theater that's in the movie. Because we talk about like the setting, the way you see a film. Although I will say, I want to call it the breakneck theater because we were on the end row and things look straightened out.
Yes.
So we're both going to flat ass screen.
Yeah, that was kind of a mess.
Yeah, you got to be. Shout out to Garrett. He got us the tickets. That was great. But we're gonna try to get some center seats in the meantime.
So the quick wrap up things before you got whatever you're wrapping up is. I want to talk about.
Remember.
I want to talk about Bruce Lee real quick, but I don't know if you know this, but Bruce Lee was originally a suspect in the Manson family murders. Believe it or not. There's conflicting stories. One is because his fingerprints might have been in the house. The other is that there was a pair of glasses left behind, and Bruce Lee wore glasses, and Roman Polanski suspected him, and then actually had the prescription.
He's the last person to be expected.
They were like, Bruce Lee did the killing. So the fact that thing was so weird, but the Bruce Lee sequence that apparently his family is upset about.
His daughter said she didn't like the portrayal. I just read the headline. Who am I? I'm not going to go out there and...
Well, yeah, it's fine.
Plus
because,
it was a
everyone's
flashback.
allowed to have their own feelings, especially if they're related to someone. I don't know how I'd feel if I was related to someone and I didn't like their portrayal in a movie.
But it's not
it would probably make me say things.
But it's not even a portrayal of him. It's the portrayal of what Brad Pitt thinks he would have been like.
Right. Well, yeah, but here's the thing. To me, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's a fairy tale, right? So, like, to me... What are you gonna do? Like with Brad Pitt, how do you establish his bona fides as a tough guy? So Quentin's like, I'm gonna speed all this up. Instead of doing whatever, I'm gonna have him fight the toughest guy on planet Earth at the time that he was alive and beat him in a fight. That's it. Like it was.
Yeah.
It's part of the fairy tale. A princess gets, what a princess gets in a fairy tale, and those things, and then the tough person in a fairy tale has to be like, that's how it goes. Like if it's Game of Thrones, right? The ultimately, what do we know was going to happen the whole time? Some army in Game of Thrones was going to have to figure out some way to fight dragons. And the army that was the toughest was going to have to bring a dragon down. And they did it. And it was like everyone flipped out when it happened because they beat a dragon. That's how, like, Brad Pitt beat up Bruce Lee. That's like that he had to do it. Like, there's no other way, unless he was going to make that movie 4 hours long and show us other scenes of Brad Pitt like doing whatever. That was,
I am not
to me, that was
opposed to that.
No, to me, that was the fairy tale moment. Also, I thought it was fascinating that how do you turn what's fake about Hollywood, the things about Hollywood that Orson Welles hated, the things that everyone who like really kind of fights for art, the way like an Orson Welles or a Quentin Tarantino do, what are the worst things you could say about Hollywood? It's fake.
People suck.
It's ruthless. It's fake, right?
Yeah.
And it's shallow. Those are the most common.
Those are
charges,
like
right? Those are the broad brush common charges about Hollywood, right? So what is one of the fakest, most annoying things about Hollywood? Everyone fighting for FaceTime, screen time. Yeah. Everyone wants to have the part with more lines. Everyone wants to be in the movie more. You send a script to someone, and like, when the Sony hack happened and all this stuff leaked, all the behind the scenes stuff about, oh my God, Angelina Jolie wants more lines. They want more. So everyone wants to be more present. The more you're seen, the more you're seen equates to success in Hollywood. Really, like there's, what's the saying? No publicity is bad.
Bad, yeah,
right?
yeah.
What did Quentin do to Charles Manson? No FaceTime.
Yeah.
No presence. He literally not only did he squash his family and stop the murderers, but he gave the villain no FaceTime. He took what the complaint about Hollywood and used it for good, right? And I find that really fascinating that he was able to take something that people hold against Hollywood and be like, yeah, but look, if you do it this way, maybe it's kind of great. Right? So I thought that was really interesting that he was able to pull that off. And I appreciated that I didn't have to spend a bunch of time. We're going to be in like a Manson renaissance again. I know there's the Mindhunters coming out and doing like whatever. And I just don't want to spend a lot of time with that guy. Right? And I don't have to.
If it's in the Mindhunter world.
Well, yeah, that's fine. But that's what I mean is we're already going to get it, right? It's already happening. We didn't need it here. And somehow he knew we didn't need it here, and he did it. Yeah. And I thought it was spectacular. It was one of my favorite non-showings of a character I've ever seen done. I agree with it 1,000%.
On top of that, Steve McQueen.
Oh, that was amazing too. That was
and the actor, I forget that actor's name, but I didn't expect it to be that dude.
Yeah.
He was great.
Yeah, totally great. So I find that fascinating. There's some like really dark stuff in this movie. The character, the actor that Timothy Oliphant plays is a real guy who actually I think is a child molester. There's a whole bunch of
the Western Star.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of hidden darknesses in this movie that are
even
that because Hollywood has exactly. So I don't know. I think that's one of the main takeaways of this movie is there are so many people who I respect who paused their reviews of the movie and like, I got to sit on this for a minute. I got to think about it. I got to process it. I got to go see it again. I got to do whatever. And I think ultimately that's Quentin's greatest strength. It's not where he lands. It's not, is he Orson Welles? Is he Hitchcock? Is he like whatever? It's the fact that you can't actually place him. But you got to spend time with it to figure it out. I think is ultimately like my favorite element of him, and this movie is the most that of him that I've ever seen him do.
Sort of like what David Lynch does.
Yeah, but in a coherent way, because like you can explain this story in 2 paragraphs.
Yeah,
right.
It's weird,
but it has a Lynchian effect, but it's a streamlined plot. It's
interesting to see that.
Totally.
Wow. So yeah, we're seeing the second. I'm curious to see what we think. Second viewing
for sure. Wait, that's exactly my point. This is the movie I would be most excited to do a 1-year anniversary of watching it episode.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Right?
I would like that.
So let's all right, let's do that.
But we're both, so by then we'll have seen it on the breakneck screen at the Cinerama.
Yes.
Hoof.
I've seen it on an iPhone.
I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it on my computer. I've seen it on another screen.
Right.
And actually, what I'm most curious about right now is we saw it in the 70mm blow up at the Cinerama, and then we're gonna go see both digital today because Alex, we had the option to see 35mm, and I'm like, I want to see digital. Like I know most people are like, oh, you got to see the film, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I want to actually like be able to see the same film, 2 different formats, and see if it has that feel. So.
Cool.
Who the fuck knows?
Well, that is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Thanks for hanging through the episode with us. No great film has a better hallmark than causing a great conversation. So tell us what you think.
Let us know what you think. Subscribe to the show. If you're listening to it, just go give the 5-star review. What are you doing, you dingus? Join the Hollow Weekly group. Join the Criterion group, the Criterion channel page. There's a lot going on over there where we'll probably just keep doing this discussion, but for a shit ton of other films.
That's right.
What's a better way to spend the day than talking about movies?
Agreed.
There we go. Until next time, watch a bunch of good movies, watch a bunch of scary movies, watch some Hollywood films, watch The Player, watch everything.
Bye.
Bye.